Hello, guys. Welcome to week 4 of NTI. Seems like this is going on for longer than we expected, but here we are. I want to remind you not to forget these direct lines of contact that you have to me. You can call me by phone. My phone number is listed on the Contact Miss Abshire tab in Google Classroom. It's been uploaded to every week so far. Some days my phone rings off the hook. Join in, give me a call, see if you can get some help right away. Also, Zoom, I have that open every day from 12:15 to 3 o'clock. Lots of people have popped in, asked a question, signed back out. You do not have to stay there the whole 3 hours, but you can pop into that anytime you want and ask a question. If you prefer to text, you can use the Remind app. I might not be as fast to answer that, but I will get back to you as soon as possible. Same thing with email. If you would like to just email me from your school email account, you can do that, and I'll get back to you as fast as I can. Based on your feedback from Friday's work, we're going to continue practicing slide and divide. You made it clear that that wasn't an easy concept, but it is very important and it will be used a lot in the next couple weeks. You need to be doing today's activity on your own sheet of paper. So if you don't have a piece of paper and a pencil, go get it, pause the video. When you are finished, you will upload a picture of your work for each of the questions. There will be 5, 2 that I'll show you and 3 that you do yourself. If you did not copy these notes from Thursday's video, Friday's work, please write those down now. Again, pause the video and get that down. You'll be using it. Our first question today is 8x squared minus 26x plus 15. Even though it's not written over here in the steps, remember that your first step is always to check if there is a GCF, a greatest common factor for 8 and negative 26 and 15. There is not a common factor for 8 and negative 26 and 15. So we're going to start on the slide and divide. Why do we want to do that? Because you guys are pretty good at factor x, but you can't use factor x with a number in front. So we're going to slide that number out of our way by multiplying it to our end number. We're going to do 8 times 15. Now, most people don't do 8 times 15 in their head. I have given you a link on Google Classroom to this calculator, and you can use that one. It's kind of like the one we had in class, so I'm going to use that one, and I'm going to find out what 8 times 15 is. 8 times 15 is 120. So I'm going to take that 120 and I'm going to add it to the end. So my new problem now is x squared minus 26x plus 120. Since I have 1x squared, now I can use slide and divide. Slide the 8 out of the beginning to the end. Then you have something you can use the factor x on. Remember, on the factor x, you take your end number, which in this case is 120. It goes on top. And your middle number, negative 26, it's on bottom. You are looking for something that you can multiply to get 120, but you're going to add to get negative 26. When I see 0 on the end, I think that I can divide by 10. So I'm going to pull up this calculator again. And I'm going to do 120 divided by 10. 120 divided by 10 is 12. So that means 10 times 12 is 120. But 10 plus 12 is not going to be 26. Let me try negatives. Negative 10, negative 12, because that also gives me positive 120. I still don't get negative 26 when I add them. So these two are out. I'm looking at 120 up here again, and I think if I counted by 20, I could probably get to 120. So I'm going to pull up my calculator, and I'm going to do 120 divided by 20. And that comes out to an even number. So 20 times 6 is 120. 20 plus 6 is close. I need it to be negative 26. So I'm going to make both of these negative. If I multiply 2 negatives, I'm still going to get my positive 120. If I add these two, I'm going to get negative 26. So the two numbers that I'm going to put on the side of my factor x are -20 and -6. Then I'm going to take those two factors and write out my answer, x minus 20, x minus 6. But this is only the answer to what we changed. It's not the answer to the question. So now that I have been able to use factor x, I have to go back and I have to take this number that I slid to the end and I have to divide it back out. I slid it to the end, so I'm going to divide it on the ends of my two binomials. So now I'm going to divide by 8, the same number that I slid to the end before. Now I'm going to divide it on the ends of my two parts. Once you divide, the next step is to reduce. Let me remind you, on your TI-84 calculator, you can take -20 over 8, and you can type it in as a division problem. Let me clear this real quick. -20 divided by 8, working on the calculator, I get 3.5. That just doesn't seem right. Let me clear my calculator again and try that. 20 divided by 8, 2.5. But I need it to be a reduced fraction. So I'm going to press math, enter, enter, and I got 5 over 2. I'm going to do the same thing with 6 over 8. I'm going to press it in the calculator. When I do that and do math, enter, enter, I get 3 over 4. So now I have reduced the fractions. However, I don't want my answer to have fractions or those decimals that I just got rid of. So I'm going to do my last step with it, which is bottoms up. According to your feedback, bottoms up was the most confusing. When I'm doing bottoms up, I'm talking about the bottoms of the fractions, and I'm going to move those bottoms up to the front of x, up to the front of x. So this 2 is going to move up to the front of that x, and it's just going to be 2x minus 5. And this 4, which is on the bottom, the denominator, it's going to move in front of its x, and that's going to be 4x minus 3. Started with 8 in the beginning, which I can't use factor x on, so I slid it to the end so that I could use factor x. This was the answer to the factor x, but not the answer to my question. So I had to go back and put the 8 back in by dividing it out, reduce the fractions, bring those bottoms up. This is the answer to my original question that I started number 1 with. Here's number 2. Pause video if you need to get it written down. On number 2, we have the same situation. There is not a common factor for 3 and -14 and -80. So I'm going to need to slide so that I can use a factor x. So 3 times -80, remember, pull up a calculator if you need to. 3 times -80 is -240. So my new ending number is -240, and my new beginning number is a 1. That is important. I need a 1 in front so that I can use the factor x. -240 goes at the top. I want to find two things that I can multiply to get -240. And I want to also be able to add those two things to get 14. Since 240 ends in 10, I'm thinking 10 times something. So I'm going to pull up my calculator and figure out what 240 divided by 10 is. 240 divided by 10 is 24. So I know that I can use 24 and 10 to get 240. That means one of these has to be negative. -24 times 10 or 24 times -10 in order to get what I actually have, which is -240. So I look at these two pairs, and the pair that adds together to get my -14 is the top pair. The bottom pair is out, And I'm going to use the negative 24 and the 10 for the sides of my factor x. Then I'm going to take this minus 24 and write it in x minus 24. I'm going to take this positive 10, x plus 10. Remember, this is not the answer to the question. It's the answer to this second row, which was not my actual question. My actual question started with a 3 that I slid to the end. Now I'm going to move to the divide step and get that 3 back out of there. To get the 3 out, the same 3 that I just slid, I'm going to divide on both sides. After you divide, after you write that you're going to divide, you have to see if those fractions can simplify or reduce. So you pull up your calculator, you type in negative 24 divided by 3, and that comes out to negative 8. When you plug in 10 divided by 3, 10 divided by 3, here it is over here on the calculator, I get 3.333, which I don't want that decimal, so I'm going to press math, enter, enter. Comes back to 10 over 3, which just tells me that it doesn't simplify. So 24 over 3 does simplify to negative 8. 10 over 3 does not simplify, so I keep it for now. And I move to my last step, which is bottoms up. For bottoms up, I look for my bottom numbers. I have a 3 on the bottom. 8 doesn't have a denominator anymore. Technically, it's a 1, but I don't have a bottom number there. So I'm going to keep x minus 8. But since this one does have a bottom number, it's going to move up in front of the x. So I have 3x plus 10. Once you slide a number, you are not done until you divide that number. After you slide and divide, do the intermediate steps of factoring and reducing, then you are finished with your question. Guys, these are the last 3 that you're going to work out on your own. I need you to upload a clear picture of your work to Google Classroom or Remind. You must have to turn in the work for all 5 problems, and I want to see all the steps like I just did for you on the video, including problems 1 and 2. The answers that you should get for each problem are next to them in red so that you can check your work. Rewatch this video if you get stuck. The steps are the same, just different numbers for each question. Remember, you can contact me through Zoom or a phone call or an email or a text if you need help.